What's your dirty little secret that you've been keeping for a long time and you can share anonymously now? Chapter 2. I finally told this hilarious story a couple months ago to my in-laws. In like 3rd grade, one of my mega-rich friends had a huge sleepover. Maybe 15 to 20 girls were at this sleepover. I woke up in the middle of the night having to use the bathroom. I laid down a huge log in the downstairs toilet, and when I went to wipe, no toilet paper. I went in the cabinets and found a decorative towel and wiped my ass with it, and shoved it back in under a bunch of other toiletries in the drawers. After all the commotion, I forgot to flush the toilet. How do I know I forgot to flush? In the morning, her older teen brother goes to use the toilet and wakes us all up yelling, "Oh, who took a shit and didn't flush?" Or wipe? Literally every girl jumped up to go look at this giant turd laying in the toilet unmasked due to no toilet paper in the bowl. Everyone was so grossed out and laughing and asking who did it. I just joined along. I'm pretty sure everyone came to believe it was the weird girl of our grade. Poor thing. I still think about my friend's poor mother finding her, decorative towel smeared in shit. As a kid, I was into computers and graphic design, so I hung out at the art class all the time. I learned all the desktop publishing in Photoshop, like software, early 90s. One of the learning exercises I gave myself was making a Wild West style poster, Wanted Dead Not Alive. And I used a digital pic we had of the school principal. I spent a fair bit of time making it look age, getting the fonts right, all that. Saved it on the secret folder I had on the Archimedes computer and forgot about it. Someone clearly found it because years later, I'd left school for college. My sister who was. Still, there tells me the whole school was dragged into the hall with the principal, quite angry, holding the poster demanding to know who printed hundreds of copies and posted them all over the school and local neighborhood. I was a farm kid and learned mechanics out of necessity. I worked at a pulp and paper mill in college. I'm a girl. They refused to let me be a mechanic because I was a girl. Even though I had the expertise and experience fixing farm equipment, I emptied the sexist foreman's thermos and caught a massive flying cockroach that came off a wood chip barge and put said cockroach in thermos. Break time was fun when he unscrewed the thermos lid to figure out why nothing was coming out. I ended up being a mechanic and fixing and driving the chip. Yard semi, my father was the only one I ever told. He was so proud in college. I'm the one that took a Sharpie to black out the Riaz door peephole. I guess they had to do a total replacement. She would stand there all day night watching people come and go. Some kind of power or ego trip, IDK. There was a very serious floor meeting with the ORA and building manager about defacing campus property that we were required to attend. Write-ups and expulsion were threatened if the person was caught. I showed up stoned as fuck, but seeming serious and not knowing anything. My roommate knew because she was my lookout, but we had a good laugh after the meeting back in the room. When I was 13, I got home from school and realized I'd forgotten my house key, Gen X. So I went to the neighbor's house to call my mom at work. Surprisingly, my dad answered the phone to me. Dad? Dad, hello son, how's it going? Meh, what are you doing? D, oh, just watching some TV while your mother is doing the dishes at this point. I realized what had happened. I dialed the wrong number and got a guy who sounded like my dad and who had a son who sounded like me. Before I could clear things up, he said, "Are you on your way home from school? Your mom just reminded me you're still grounded." Without even thinking, I responded, "Yeah, well, fuck mom and fuck you too. I'll be home when I'm damn good and ready." And I hung up the phone. I was the girl who was having sex with a guy on the theater stage back in high school. The lights were very dim, so you couldn't make out our faces. The theater director walked in, saw us, and we ran off. He then gave us all a lecture in class. Didn't ask the perps to come forward, but to just never do it again. That news spread around the school like wildfire, and surprisingly, the guy never bragged to any of his friends. I certainly never told anyone. No one ever found out it was us. So, at a workplace, I made a large deposit in the toilet, which initially didn't flush properly. After a few tries, it disappeared, but the water drained kinda slow. Still, I feel it was likely gone, but slightly worried. The next dude to use the toilet clogged it. I'm certain it was because mine was trapped in the S-bend, blocking the way. He went to the hardware store to get gear to unclog it, much to his embarrassment of the whole office, knowing that it had to be my fault. I never said a thing. I was suicidal 2 years ago and somehow pulled myself out of it without professional help or telling anyone. I couldn't bear seeing the heartbreak on my mother's face if I told her I wanted to die. I don't think I ever could. I use a soft hairbrush to scratch my balls. 10 tenths? I lost my virginity at 15 to a person in their 30s. The classic, wow, you're so mature for your age, shtick. I'm 37 now, and while I've tried to drop hints, a few friends, and while I suspect my mom realized after the fact, nobody in my real life knows still did my first proper age appropriate. Relationship, I didn't mention it early on. And the right time just never happened at parties, during those late night confessional circles in the kitchen. I've never come close to blurting that one out. And I realize it's because I just don't want to. The way I see it now is, it doesn't bother me in my day-to-day life. It doesn't impact my self-worth. I have a lot of compassion for my teenage self being so desperate to feel cool. And grown up, I thought about going to the cops about it, but 1, I live in another country now. 2, any criminal charges would be pretty minimal, and 3, I don't have any old ancient MSN chat logs. No cell phone back then. So the idea of digging it up only to fail to achieve anything without written proof is pretty horrible. I found the person on Facebook about a decade ago, and they were a gross old loser complaining about everything and everyone on their wall virtually every day. A person pushing 50 posting emo memes. So at least karma has made their life shit. My family thinks I've been sober for a year, but I've been battling addictions to other substances in the meantime. Beat alcoholism though, so at least I'm not at death's door. That shit will ruin your insides. I ran in a high school track meet once using a tampon. The entire tampon. Plastic tube and all. I was so confused on how these were in popular use because wow, what a pain in the ass it was trying to keep that little extendable plastic stick from falling out. Why did people like using these things? Edit. I have deep regret about the word choice of pain in the ass in this post back when we were dating. My wife found out I'd never had a surprise birthday party before. She really wanted to throw one for me, which I was okay with. Only one problem, it never worked. She'd try almost every year, tried throwing surprise parties for other occasions. Each time, as she was planning stuff, I'd pick up on some discrepancy in her cover story, or pick up on something that a friend said, ask about it, and she'd be unable to cover it. Then finally, after years and years of this, she pulled it off. She was delighted and so proud that she at last managed to surprise me. She's talked about it for years, about how close I came to uncovering it. It made her so happy, and it was a lot of fun. Except what actually happened is I finally managed to be quick enough putting the pieces together to myself before I asked about the discrepancy in her cover story. Played dumb, pretended I had no idea. Acted surprised when the day came. She will never know. I once sat in a sauna at the gym contemplating what to do in life. Just in one of those moments in life where the road ahead was unclear. A man walked in who was 30 plus years older than me and sat down. Just the two of us were there. I felt this strong urge to ask him his advice. What his regrets in life were. If he were in his 20s again, what would he do differently? etc. But my social anxiety and general fear of men kept me quiet. I've always regretted it. I think sometimes life puts opportunities in our path to learn and grow, and missing any of them due to something like social anxiety is such a waste. when I was 16. I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dump my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town, and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy looking rose bush she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening. But she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs out the half-bath window and down the street to her yard where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. I make up lies about what I do on the weekend. Usually I don't do much, and I'm very content with that. Others are always asking me what I'm doing, and I never had anything to tell them. I make up lies to get out of phone calls or plans, saying I'm out of town or with friends. I love just being left alone. When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. Thanks for watching. Write in the comments what dirty secrets you're hiding. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and see you next time.